Hello, beautiful people. So, for my dance class today, I'm going to continue talking about how to make choreography. This time, I'm going to talk about creating choreography for groups of people. Okay, so these past 2 weeks, I've been talking about choreography for just one dancer, for an individual. I mentioned last week how I may create a video talking about group choreography. So, today, I'm going to do just that. I'm not going to go into super detail, but I am going to give you guys some terms and their meanings that I think every dancer / choreographer should know. Of course, there are so many terms in dance and choreography. Don't have time to go through all of them, but I'm going to be discussing some of the terms that are the most popular and possibly the most important, arguably. So let's get into it. So when you're creating choreography for an individual versus a group of people, obviously there are many differences, and creating a choreography for a group of people has so many more layers that you have to take into consideration. One of those aspects with groups of dancers that you have to think about are formations. So what do I mean by formations? Formations are the arrangements you place dancers in, okay? So it's basically the patterns and shapes you want to create with a group of people. So to give you a super simple example, I may have dancers performing a sequence in a circle, or I may have them performing it in a line or multiple lines. And this is the next layer that you have to think about when you're placing a choreography on bodies of people. One of the beautiful things about creating formations is that it adds so much complexity to the movement, and it keeps it so visually appealing that there's always something to look at. So an audience member may get so enraveled in seeing a detail of a movement, and then at the same time there's a much bigger picture going on. So you may have one dancer dancing this movement, but then the whole group of them makes that movement look different because they're doing it in a different shape as a group of people. I know that was really wordy, but stay with me. So for example, if I have how can I give a good example of this? It can force people to really look at certain parts of the body if you are putting a movement on a group of dancers, and you want the audience to focus on that specific part of the body. Okay, so if I want someone who's sitting right in front, okay, if I want them to really focus on the movement of all the dancers' hands, I'm probably going to want them more in a straight line versus a circle. So a circle goes all the way around, right? If there's one person sitting in the front, they're probably not going to be able to see the hands of the people that are on the back part of the circle, okay? But if you have audience members who are at different parts, different locations of the audience, maybe you have audiences that are sitting high up, okay? They're going to be able to look down and actually really see and appreciate that circle. So you may actually want to keep that circle formation, even if you want the audience to focus on just the hands of the dancers or something. And that's what makes it so beautiful and artistic, because every single person in the audience is going to get a different perspective and a different takeaway message or visual from seeing that particular movement. So everyone views art and views a performance in a different way. Yes, they may still get the same message across that you're trying to give, but everyone has a different perspective. So those are the things you have to keep in mind when you're creating a choreography, and especially formations. So next term, unison. So the word unison is pretty straightforward. You're just having dancers dance the same movement at the same time. That's the most basic aspect of creating choreography for a group of dancers. Okay, that's the most simple one. The next term is accumulation. So when you accumulate something, you're building upon what you already have, right? So the same thing is in dance. So you're adding movement to an already existing movement, okay? So I'm going to give you a visual example of an accumulation. Super simple example, okay? So this is my first movement in the accumulation. That's 1. That's 1, 2. Now I'm going to build upon this, keeping the same previous movement and adding another one. So, as you can see, I started off with one movement, right? Just one. And then I kept that one movement and added another. 1, 2. And then I did it again, keeping those two same movements, and added a third one. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Accumulations can look really, really cool when you have a group of people. And it adds to a lot of complexity. Especially if you have music that has layers in music. Every piece of music has layers in it. But some have more layers than others. And they build upon each other as the song progresses. So you can really play around with that when you're choreographing something. So that's an example of an accumulation. Now the next term I wanted to tell you about is canon. So with a canon, you have one dancer completing a movement, and then the next dancer, and then the next dancer, and then the next dancer repeat that movement back to back. So the best way I can describe a canon is the domino effect. In my mind, that's how I define it, as a domino effect. So you know when you knock down, when you set up dominoes in a line, you knock down one domino, the next all knock down back to back to back to back. One right after the other. That's what a canon is in dance. So it can be a really beautiful, fluid thing to see. It looks very smooth. It's very satisfying to see, because visually when we look at canons, it gives us that satisfaction that a movement is being thoroughly finished. So think about it, like a lot of people actually really enjoy setting up dominoes and setting them all up, having them creating spirals on the floor, setting up all these dominoes, and once you knock one over, they all fall down back to back to back. One right after the other. There's no hesitation in it. It just happens one right after the other. So that's one of the key aspects of a canon. It has to happen immediately, subsequently, one after the other. There's no real hesitation. There can be, you can bend that a little bit, but for the most part, it's going to happen back to back to back. So the most common canons I see are the ones that happen one count after the other. 1, 2, 3, 4. So on 1, you'll have one dancer move 1, and then the next dancer goes 2 and 3 and 4. And they're all moving that same body part with that same movement. It's the same type of movement, just a different dancer back to back to back. Canons are the most effective when you have a formation that really allows the viewer to see that canon happening in a very fluid way. So, having dancers in a line or having dancers in a spiral formation, I think that's really beautiful too. Yeah, so I think that was the last term I wanted to discuss. There are so many other terms, but those terms, formation, unison, accumulation, and canon, are some of the most popular ones and the most basic ones that people learn. So that's it for my discussion on group choreography today. hope you guys enjoyed it. If you look up these terms online, if you look them up on YouTube, you can see examples of choreography that are using these terms. So you can watch them happening in action with groups of people. And if you guys are feeling really creative at home and coming up with choreography, you can keep these terms in mind when you're working on something that's really visually appealing, and playing around with different shapes that you can make with people's bodies. All right, love you guys. Have a great weekend.